David Bernard, in his defense against Trinity, once said,
let's approach this several different ways. Look at the next verse, which is the fulfillment. So God created man in his own image. It switches back to the singular. And you look at the man he created, Adam. Well, you could say Adam is body, soul, spirit, mind, will, etc., etc. At the end of the day, he's one person with one personality, and as such, he is the image of his creator. So that right there tells you God is not a trinity, because Adam is not a trinity. Adam is one person reflecting his creator.
Well, let's read the verse. Then God said, "Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. Genesis chapter 1 verses 26 to 27. If you read closely, the verse actually talks about the creation of them, meaning, the one that God created in God's image and likeness was not just Adam, rather it was both Adam and Eve. Here, mankind who were created in the image of God was not just one person but two people. Therefore, for David Bernard to make an argument of one person God based on the premise that God created an image of him who is also one person in Genesis chapter 1 verses 26 to 27 is an outright deception. In my previous reel, the image of God created in Genesis chapter 1 verses 26 to 27 was clearly referring to a plurality of persons who were Adam and Eve, since it says, them. As such, since mankind was created in God's image, that would mean that God is two persons also. But does this mean that God's two persons coexist both at the same moment and are co-equal in terms of being a person? Well, let's take a look at how Adam and Eve came to be, since they were created in the likeness of God. Notice that it was Adam who exists first, then God took the substance of Adam to make Eve, making them both mankind. Here, the person of Adam and Eve did not coexist. In addition, Eve was made subservient to Adam. From here, we can therefore infer that God's two persons did not also coexist at the same moment, because the likeness of God who were Adam and Eve did not coexist at the same moment. Moreover, we can infer that since Eve was taken from the substance of Adam, making them one mankind, in this likeness, the substance of the Son too came from the Father, making them one God. And as Eve was made subservient to Adam, the Son too was made subservient to the Father. In one statement, he used Isaiah chapter 44 verse 24 to support that in Genesis chapter 1 verse 26, God was alone in creating mankind, even though the verse says, "Let us make man in our image."
You go to another passage in Isaiah 44, 24, it says, God stretched out the heavens alone. He says it in the first person, I stretched out the heavens alone and the earth by myself. So God himself said, when I created everything, I did it alone, and I did it by myself. So what I'm suggesting is, it really isn't appropriate to try to add a second person as a pre-existent being, when the Bible is very clear that God did it all alone and by himself.
Now, if we read Isaiah chapter 44 verse 24, the alone that the Lord did was specifically stretching out the heavens and spreading the earth abroad. It did not mention that he was alone too in making mankind. Rather, he just assumed that he was alone too in making mankind just because in some task he was alone. What David Bernard did was a classic example of the fallacy of composition, which arises when one infers that something is true of the whole from the fact that it is true of some part of the whole. Examples of this are, this tire is made of rubber, therefore, the vehicle of which it is a part is also made of rubber. During God's creation, he stretches out the heaven and earth alone, therefore, he created mankind alone too.